Summer's here. The fine weather, the sunshine, the school holidays. People are taking the kids out into the countryside. People are taking the kids out to our national parks, the Lake District, the Peak District, Snowdonia, Dartmoor, lots of other places. Places that we just take for granted. We go and we enjoy, and it's beautiful, and they are beautiful places in the country. And we go, and like I say, we take them for granted. But we haven't been able to use those areas for very long. Only in the last about 80 years have we had the right to roam, have we had the right to walk across our own countryside. And that was thanks to a group of young people in 1932. This is the story of the mass trespass of Kinderscote in Derbyshire. April 24th, 1932, hundreds of young men and women defy the law of the time of the land to walk across the moorlands to Kinderscote Plateau in Derbyshire. This would become the Peak District National Park. The protest was led by a 20-year-old man called Benny Rothman. He was the secretary of the British Workers' Sports Federation, which organised walks and cycles and things for young people at the time. 1932, it was a different age. There were no PCs, there were no Game Boy, there was none of this whatever. There was no technology. People used to go out and walk and cycle. My parents did, I remember this and that. And they had not got the right to do this in their own countryside because the landowners who owned the land, who wanted it for Grousemore, had gamekeepers who kept people away. It was trespass. The people who worked in the grit and the crap of the industrial areas of the country weren't allowed to benefit from the fresh air that a walk in the countryside would give them. So in 1932, it all kicked off, and this would lead to massive changes in the country, changes that we take for granted now. And it was led by 20-year-old Benny Rothman. Remember that name. The plan was for a group of ramblers from Manchester to go up onto Kinderscote and to meet groups from Sheffield, the other side of the Peak District. Now, the numbers vary as to where. Some people say there were 300. Benny Rothman himself said there were between 400 and 600. Ewan McCall, who was a folk singer and a activist who was there on the day, estimated it at 3,000. But the Manchester Guardian is basically the general consensus of opinion is the number given by the Manchester Guardian at the time, which was around 400 people. So they set off, and what they did, the police got wind that they were going to do this, so they told the police, they let it out that they were going to meet in Hayfield, the village of Hayfield. So the police, a third of the Derbyshire police force, gathered in Hayfield to stop them. But this was a diversion because they set off from a quarry elsewhere. They met there and they set off and they walked up Kinderscote. Now they were met by gamekeepers. From the photographs I've seen and from research I've done, the walkers weren't armed. The gamekeepers seemed to have staffs, crooks, the normal kind of gamekeeper attire, and they met and fights broke out. And one gamekeeper was injured. But eventually, these walkers made it to the top of Kinderscote, met up with the groups from Sheffield. Now, they knew the police were in Hayfield, but they decided to walk peacefully back down to Hayfield, where they were met by the police, and 6 of them were arrested. And 5 of those 6, including Benny Rothman, went to prison. Benny Rothman, one lad got 6 months, 3 got 3 months, and the lad got 2 months. Benny Rothman got 3 months. He didn't get 6 months because he didn't actually riot. He wasn't involved in the fights, but he was found guilty of inciting the riots. He went down for 3 months. But the giving of those sentences, the handing down of those sentences, got a massive wave of sympathy off the public. And this was the start of us in this country being able to walk in our national parks. And this is all I've done all my life. So I am eternally grateful to these people. Let's see how it pans out afterwards. According to public opinion, this act of civil disobedience was one of, if not the most successful in British history. It arguably led to the passage of the National Parks instigation in 1949 and the setting up of the Pennine Way, the opening of the long distance footpaths and other national parks throughout the country and Scotland and Wales, and people's right to walk in the countryside was protected by the Countryside and Rights of Way Act, and I think that only really was cemented into policy in the year 2000. The Kinder Trespass was only one of a number of protests that were set up to seek access to moorlands. I know there are lots of real open areas of land here that wouldn't have been open to me, that I walk on regularly now, that wouldn't have been open to me 60, 70, 80 years ago, but now thanks to the mass trespass of Kinder Scout, they are open to us. I don't think we can actually express what a benefit this was to the British people, that what these people did, and nobody knows about them. Nobody knows about Benny Rothman. This was monumental. We would still have been under the yoke of the landowner. We wouldn't have had the right to roam. We wouldn't have had the right to wander in the countryside. We'd have had gamekeepers shooing us away. We'd have had, like in other countries, where people will come up to you with a gun and say, "Get off my land." No, we have rights of way protected in law, where we can walk literally across a farmer's land. Now, the flip side of that is that we have got to respect that farmer's land, keeps the footpath, close gates, don't damage stiles, don't frighten livestock, keep your dogs on the lead, clear up after your dog. And I think, on the whole, apart from the odd rogue idiot, we respect that, and that's what makes it great, isn't it? That's what makes it great. I love it. Today's a beautiful day. This afternoon, Molly and I are going to go up the other side of Rivington Moor, and I did a video a couple of months ago about Pikestones, which is a Neolithic burial site. We're going to go up Pikestones this afternoon. That's an area of freedom to roam, open access. I can walk about where I want up there. I couldn't have done that. It's fabulous, isn't it? So let's just have a quick look back at how this developed over the last couple of 100 years. I will have to read this because I can't remember the dates off the top of my head because I'm a little old man. But in the early 19th century, the British countryside was commemorated by people like Byron, Coleridge, Wordsworth, who wrote about the untamed beauty of the British countryside. In 1884, the first Freedom to Roam bill was introduced in Parliament by MP James Bryce. The bill failed. This is because, in my opinion, the judges who were overseeing this were probably landowners themselves. They were protecting their own interests. They didn't win. That was 1884. In the early 20th century, there was a growing appreciation amongst common people, listen to me, of the countryside. People worked in the mills, the pits towns, the mill towns. At weekend they wanted to get out and get fresher, and they weren't able to because the landowners basically just prevented them, just said, no, you're not going on our land. Anyway, in 1931 there was a government inquiry again. This was put forward and turned down yet again. There were still objections. People were still fighting. That was 1931. But in 1932, the Kinder mass trespass happened. There were imprisonments and sentences handed down, and this was the sea change of what happened. People did not like that one little job. The British people will not stand for crap like that. We all know that. Of course we do. 1945, there is a white paper on national parks, but it didn't go anywhere. There was a white paper. They can produce white papers all day if they want. It doesn't actually mean anything or do anything or lead to anything. And it was 1949 when there was a Countryside Act. This only paved the way. So this was 1949, and this paved the way for the opening of national parks. Took from 1932 to 1949 for this real motion, the thing that the mass trespassers of Kinder Scout, it took from 1932 to 1949 for it to really put the government under pressure to do the right thing. And in 1951, on the 17th of April 1951, the Peak District becomes the UK's first national park, and we should all be eternally grateful for the people who allowed us, who fought to give us the right to do that. And we should never forget Benny Goodman. Benny Rothman. Benny Goodman. Wasn't he a musician? We never forget Bonnie Rothman. He went on to work as a trade unionist for many years, and a keen rambler and walker and climber, an all-round top guy. Thank you, Benny Rothman, and all who's sailing. Enjoy the national parks, people, but remember what into getting them for you. Appreciate it. If you like the videos, please think about subscribing or pressing the like button. I'll see you on the flip. Peace and love.